Well, welcome back to the Faith Together podcast, sponsored by the Center for Faith and Family at Olivet Nazarene University. I'm Lindsay, and I'm thrilled to be joined by my friend Leon. Hi, Leon.
Hi, Lindsay. It is so good to see you today.
It's good to see you, too.
I missed being with you last week.
Yes, we missed you, too. Last week was a great episode. Welcome back.
Yeah, thanks. It was good.
Yeah.
It's good to be back, and it was good hearing you speak with Ben Zobrist. I kind of missed being with you guys.
Yeah, it was a great conversation and really, really connects with what our series is all about. The everyday faith that we want to find in those ordinary, everyday moments with our families, with our kids, with those in our community. And so we've had a lot of different themes we've walked through in this series, but we're specifically just saying, when you look at a calendar, what are some of the everyday moments that a family may walk through? So if you remember, we started just with ordinary days, and those days were places that we were able to just identify how we could just talk about Jesus in our going, in our coming. And we had the privilege of talking to Tracy Smith on that episode. And then she joined us again for Special Days, which was an episode all about birthdays, milestones, graduations, getting a driver's license, all those different days in the life of a family that you want to remember. And then you and I talked about holidays on Easter and how those can be used to have faith conversation and keep telling that story of Jesus to our families. And then, of course, last week was Game Days with Ben Zobrist. And he shared about his ministry, Champion Forward. Yeah, that was pretty exciting to hear how he's impacting the lives of athletes and helping them with mental health and being well, but also kind of recognizing how we can help our kids, as many of our kids are involved in sports and the pressure that goes along with that. Yeah, it's a reality for so many families. And I wonder even if we would be able to do some more sports-related episodes in the years ahead, because I think they're just so practical. Yeah, for sure. And I think, as you said, practical, I think those will help parents quite a bit as they try to navigate. I know for a lot of parents, there's a little bit of, how do we manage this? What's healthy? What's not healthy? Should we be missing church to be a part of travel ball? All those kind of things. I think with that comes a lot of guilt on parents' part. As well as just trying to figure out what is the healthy thing for my child and for our family. Yeah. So I'm hoping that was helpful for them as they listen to Ben share about that. Yeah. So listeners, if you've not heard some of these previous episodes of this series, please go back, listen in. We'd love for you to join us for those. But for today, we're going to focus on summer days. Yeah. Ooh, summer days right around the corner here, really. That's right. It's not far away. And we want to just take advantage of those summer moments where we have sometimes a lot more downtime with our kids, with our families than we do during the school year. Yeah. And as a children's pastor, I love summers because we get to do things that we don't get to do the rest of the year. And because of that, I'm really excited about today's topic. Yes. So today we are going to talk to a good friend of mine. His name is Dan Lavalia. Dan, welcome to the Faith Together podcast.
Thanks, Lindsay. Thanks. Appreciate that.
Yeah. So glad that you're here. A little bit about Dan, I want to let our listeners know, is he is a discipleship catalyst, a ministry consultant, and a leadership coach. He is also the camp pastor and associate director at Camp Paradise in Michigan's Upper Peninsula. And so that's what we're really excited to dive into today, is camp ministry and his role as a camp pastor. But Dan has also, Leon, I shared with you a little bit earlier. He's been a pastor to me and to my family over the years as we've connected in children's ministry. And so, Dan, we're thrilled to have you with us. And again, are excited to just learn more about how families can connect during summer days. So can you tell us just a little bit, Dan, about Camp Paradise and your role as a camp pastor?
Absolutely. So, I've been the camp pastor at Camp Paradise for the past 6 seasons. And when I started, it was because starting in 2015, I had been writing the devotionals and curriculum that they use. But even before that, in 2007, I started bringing my son to camp. And part of this ministry, Camp Paradise, is that it offers a dad's camp, which is a one-on-one retreat experience for fathers and father figures with a child ages 8 to 12. So when I brought my son for 6 seasons, it was remarkable to experience the impact of connecting one-on-one. And then my younger son also went for 6 seasons. He ended up working there for 3 summers as a summer staff. And then in 2020, when kind of everything had changed around the world, they were looking for a new camp pastor. And it was actually my son, the younger one, who kind of encouraged me that he thought maybe I should take this role.
Aww.
And so, so I stepped into it. And again, this is my 6th summer living kind of off the grid up in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. It's a remarkable ministry.
That's awesome. And tell us, so Camp Paradise is connected to Willow Creek Community Church, correct?
Correct.
Yes.
Correct. So Willow Creek started in 1975. That was when they hosted their first service. A couple months later, they had 720 acres donated to the church to build a camp in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. Really odd, because you'd think if you were starting a church, maybe you'd sell that property, use the money for something. No. They said, well, I guess we'll do it. So they sent one of the co-founders of the church and a few other volunteers up to the middle of nowhere. They had to find this old cabin that was from the 1900s. It's a long story.
Wow.
We have a 16-minute documentary we just made because we just crossed the 50-year mark for camp. But this camp was owned by the church before it had any other property. And over the past 50 years, they've carved out of the wilderness, an amazing facility. Still has no running water, no electricity, at least for campers. But behind the scenes, we run on solar and propane. We have some amenities for the full-time staff, different from the campers. But it's a truly remote experience. But you almost forget that you're camping.
Wow, that is incredible. And what a testimony of the Lord at work over 50 years, you said, for Camp Paradise.
That's pretty cool. Yeah. I have, I've supported camp ministry of my entire ministry, really. In fact, I can remember when I was a full-time children's pastor back in the day, Lindsay, that I used to tell parents, I can accomplish in 1 week as your child's counselor more spiritually than I can as their children's pastor over a year.
Wow.
I mean, there's just something about that so intense focus. So what a privilege, Dan, for you to be a part of Camp Paradise. And we're going to link all kinds of information about Camp Paradise on our website so that people can check that out if they're interested in that. But along with camp, as intentional as that is and the impact that it has, Dan, I'm wondering, as we kind of maybe take this on a little bit of a side journey here on how we can make road trips as part of our summer experience significant for our family. So I know that you have written some on this. In fact, Lindsay and I read something from your blog not long ago about the impact of road trips and the way you've used that in your own family. So since that's really practical things that parents are getting ready to get their kids together, get on the road and go out and enjoy the summer, give us a little bit of insight on ways to make those experiences significant in the lives of our kids.
Yeah, sure. So, one of the ahas that I had after driving, a 900-mile round trip, multiple seasons for so many years with my kids, I realized that there is a spiritual power to road trips, right? So it's a unique time, space to connect with God and each other if you choose to be intentional, right? So I believe our first priority is to be fully present spiritually and relationally. And so it's a perfect opportunity for that to happen if we choose to embrace this. I think messages that get quietly communicated simply by being in the car together can be, I love you, I want to be with you, I'm here to connect along the way. And I think of Jesus and the Emmaus Road, these 2 disciples who are kind of making sense of what had just happened in Jerusalem, with the death and resurrection, and all these things, and then Jesus sort of shows up. I believe that when you're on the road together, you can actually, with your child, with your family, experience Jesus in your midst, in your presence, if you're open to it. And so I wrote a blog, just sort of reflections from my own experience, but I put down 6 practical ways that road trips can be intentional if you choose to embrace that.
Yeah, I love the 6 practical ways
that you share.
Do you want me to
just explain?
Yeah, if you can just tell us about maybe, let's see, a quick summary of each and how they can be used on the road this summer with parents that are listening today.
Yeah, first would be you can use road trips to reset your pace. So when you're on the road, noticing your old ruts, patterns, and trying new rhythms is possible. So really slow your trip down enough to notice God and each other, right? So unplug from what you normally do, reset and reconnect, step away from the typical and usual rush of life. Here's a way to do that, right? So maybe you schedule while you're driving, quote, unplugged miles, right? You're off the grid, it's analog. You're actually having conversations. Maybe you're playing silly road games. Maybe you choose during your trip to reset your pace by watching a sunrise or a sunset, pulling off to the side of the road. You see those signs that say Vista Spot. You could take a moment to look at the scenery together. You could even leverage some of the technology, maybe share a playlist or tell jokes together. There's lots of ideas, right? Yeah. So resetting your pace, do things that you wouldn't normally do because you are off the typical path that you normally are on. Second one is to talk freely. Sometimes we aren't sure what to say, so we don't say anything. Or we turn on the music just to drown out that curiosity of I don't know what to do. So use the time in the car to open up about real life, not just your schedules and your plans. You can be a bit more honest, a bit more vulnerable, have a heart-to-heart conversation, share your highs and lows, share your hopes for the future. Perhaps you go around the car and ask, what's been the best part of your summer so far? Or what's something you've been thinking about lately? You can make it as spiritual or just relational as you want, but being mindful of the questions you ask and then allowing each person to respond can be a great way to talk freely.
Yeah, I think that's important because when we're in the car, we're not having to face each other eye to eye.
Right.
It can feel a little bit more relaxed, right? Just where, kids might feel a little bit better and a little more comfortable to share different things freely with you when you're not just staring, across the table at each other, right? Yeah. So good. Thank you, Dan. Keep going.
Indeed. And when you have windshield time, you can wait. When you have windshield time, you can wait, right? As opposed to, come on, we got to get through this. You're like, we've got a long way to go. Let's just let them be quiet, reflect, think about it. Maybe they answer that question later. It doesn't have to happen in that moment. A third one would be practice serving others. So look for small ways to show kindness along the journey. Notice who God places in your path. Maybe you can encourage kids to spot one opportunity every time you stop, or parents can notice. Maybe hold the door for someone, thank somebody who's working there or behind the counter, help someone carry something or leave an encouraging note. I found that being able to be generous, lend a hand, maybe pay it forward in the drive-through, and then have your kids look in the back and be like, how did they respond when I paid for the person behind me and they didn't know? There are ways to serve people all the time. And being on a road trip doesn't mean you're trying to get to your destination. You actually are intentionally moving in a direction, allowing what comes your way, and then responding to that. And so if God puts somebody in your path who needs something, my son and I, we've helped somebody change the windshield wipers on their car. I've changed tires. I've bought food for people. We just do that. It's just part of kind of our rhythm.
Love that. These are things that I think we just don't think about.
Yeah.
Yeah. So sure. I love the ideas. You're prompting all these thoughts in my mind. Dan, I'm the kind of guy that when I travel, I'm ready to get from point A to point B. And I think I've missed some easy opportunities here, not just with my family, but certainly with my family, but just by myself. I've got a destination to get to, and I'm narrow focused and heading down the road, and maybe missing opportunities to impact people's lives in the just ordinary. So thank you for that great suggestion. Okay, so that's 3 of the 6, right?
Yeah, that leads into the next one, which is let God interrupt. So, I think of Jesus says to us in the Great Commission, Matthew 28, 19, 20, he says, as you are going. And that's what road trips are all about. You have now created a moment where it's very clear that it is as you are going. This is a great place to make disciples. It's a great place to, baptize in the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit, to teach people to obey everything I've commanded you, right? So when Jesus was traveling with the disciples from and ran into the woman at the well, I can imagine that the disciples were like, wait, we have to go through Samaria? We don't have to go through Samaria. We could take the long way. Well, in that moment, Jesus said, no. We are going to let God's path interrupt us. So leave room in your plans for meaningful moments that you didn't expect. I like to think of it this way. Welcome the unscripted adventure on your way to your intended destination. I'll say it again. Welcome the unscripted adventure on your way to your intended destination. So if a good conversation starts, keep driving and talk it through. Maybe be willing to stop somewhere interesting or pause to pray together. You can create flexibility and margin to pay attention to God and each other while you're on the road. Explore unexpected places. You can explore unexpected places in the world, but you can also explore unexpected places in each other's hearts. But you have to be open to it, and you have to expect that God might interrupt you, and it's going to be okay. You might get there a little bit longer than you anticipated, but you're going to get there eventually.
I love that. And I love how Jesus really models that for us in the Gospels, how he was willing to be interrupted on his way to so many different places. Yeah. And that's convicting to me because I like a plan. I like to know what's coming up next. And I love spending time with people, but I want to be, accomplishing something along the way. And this is such a good reminder that we need to let that go and just be interrupted. Let others interrupt.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
I tend to easily be interrupted. I do sometimes like a plan, but most of the time, a friend of mine said one time, I have a loose relationship with time, because what time is it? Well, it's now. I'm going to be in this moment. And so that when you live in the moment, being interrupted can happen a lot more frequently. So something I also like to say is this is a fifth way to maximize the spiritual power of road trips. Note what you learn, right? So capture the meaningful moments from the trip. Write down simple and specific things that happen. Maybe take pictures, create a video log of what you experienced and encountered. Nobody, when they interact with you after your trip or after all that, wants to see every picture that you took. Nobody's interested. But why not hand a camera to your kids and let them just play with it? Take pictures of it. You probably have a camera sitting in a drawer somewhere that you could put batteries in and give it to your kid, or give them an Apple device of some kind and let them just take pictures and then see the world through their eyes. Maybe everyone shares one thing they noticed or learned or appreciated that day. A great question to ask to your kids is, or even to each other, and have your kids ask it back to you, is what's a memory from today that you want to hold on to? Older kids or teens maybe they keep a travel journal or a note in their phone. They can leave voice memos or written note. I think sharing along the way on the trip, and then at the end of the day before bed, a little bunk time can go a long way in allowing us to process what we encountered and experienced. And we all know that each of us carries a lot with us in our minds, in our bodies, and we need time to process together. And you have a natural shared experience of driving on the road side by side in the same vehicle. I've got one more for you, and that's to return home ready. So reset your pace, talk freely, practice serving others, let God interrupt, note what you learn, but then return home ready. True discipleship is truly relational. And so if you're going to have this spiritual and relational growth happen on a road trip, bring something valuable from the trip back into everyday life. You don't have to return to the old ruts. If you liked or found yourself being stretched by driving a little bit slower in the slow lane, do it. Do it more. Maybe have less hurried conversations on the phone or in meetings, or finding space to read and reflect, allowing quiet time. Road trips can be incredibly formative, both personally and as a family. So maybe you ask when you on your way home, what's one thing from this trip that we want to keep doing as a family, or stop doing as a family, or even something we encountered where we think, we stopped at that little roadside thing. We saw another family doing this, making up this weird game with a frisbee or a pickleball. And we're like, you know what? I want to start doing more of that. So just recognizing that there might be ruts worth continuing following those paths, and then there might be some that you need to change, but to return home ready to make those changes because you want to follow in the path of discipleship and disciple making, and to do that relationally as opposed to always about the target or the destination. Think about your intention or the trajectory that you're on along the way.
Yeah, that's a great idea, Dan. I really like that idea. I think about when I go on mission trips, how I try, particularly when I'm in Africa, and our listeners have heard me share a little bit about my trips to Africa. One of the things that I find is the way that they live life on a regular basis is a very different kind of pace than the pace that I live at. Also, they have a better sense of community than I do. I tend to be more individualistic in my thinking, and they're more communal. And so the things that I see in those cultures that I really like, I try to figure out, okay, how am I going to bring some of that back home with me? And oftentimes that the reminder of that is some kind of a memento that I bring home with me from that community, whether it's a bracelet or something I sit on my desk or something I keep in my pocket that is a reminder to live life a bit differently as a result of my experience with them. And that's what I hear you saying here. Allow that road trip to have a long-lasting impact on the way you live life.
Oh, that's brilliant. So one of the things that we do at Dad's Camp at Camp Paradise is, and we've probably had 15,000, 18,000 dads and their kids come through camp since 1991. We have a paddle. It's like a canoe paddle that the kids get to decorate on one side, and you turn it over and the dads get to draw and decorate it on that side. And it's usually full of activities and memories, memory verses, funny sayings, things that captured the moments of that. And I've talked to so many campers, families who say, oh yeah, we have a wall. It's like a memory wall with all these paddles from all the different kids and all the different seasons they went to camp. And it tells the story, and they can go back to it now as adults. And some of these dads and father figures are bringing kids now, and they had this as adults now. They were campers as kids in the past. So we're starting to see this generational effect. But there's something about the visual of those reminders of like, this is what happens at camp. It's very special. It's unique. And what happens at camp gets reinforced at home. I think the same thing can happen on road trips. Our first priority is to be fully present. And one of the things that dads, moms, everybody seems to have a struggle with is that being fully present is going to drain me. I'm not going to have anything left. But when we are fully present spiritually and relationally, it actually doesn't drain our tank. And so we can let God fill it spiritually, emotionally, relationally on the road together. And I think using road trips in that way can be very, very powerful.
That's great.
I agree. And I'm also wondering, as parents are listening in today, Dan, what is it that you love the most about camp ministry and just these road trips that you've taken with your boys and the memories you guys have made? Because maybe there's a parent out there thinking, you know what, going on a road trip, going up to Dad's camp at Camp Paradise, or maybe another camp they know about, maybe I should take the leap and do it. What would you say you've loved about it and why it's been worth it for you and your family?
So it's two words. Say yes. What I discovered at Camp Paradise with my kids at Dad's Camp, and what I have since taken home and experienced under our roof in other environments, is that I tend to say no too much, too quickly. I shut things down. I do in the car. No, we don't have time for that, or we can't talk about it. We can't stop here. There's a lot of no. And what if we start to say yes? So going to camp, all of a sudden, somebody else is planning the meals, the schedule, the bedding, where you're going to live and stay. And so you end up with every opportunity to be the best parent you can be because you can say yes. My kid wants to go look at frogs instead of swimming today. Great, let's go find frogs. I want to go to the climbing tower. Well, I'm scared. Okay, well, I can still go and cheer my kid on. They can climb and I'll stand there, and belay them. Finding these opportunities to say yes. Somebody asked me once, what do you do as a camp pastor? I said, well, as a dad's camp pastor, I trick dads into saying no less. They think they're bringing their kid to camp and then, the kids are going to play and the dads are like sort of just extras. I said, no, we're running a fatherhood camp in real time. It's like a lab experiment. You get to bring your child and you get to learn some things as a dad alongside your child because co-discipleship side by side happens for children of God of all ages. And so it's really cool to watch them, have this aha moment in the camp where they realize I'm here at camp. It's dad's camp. I'm at camp. I need to grow and learn and so on. And so anyway, so they start saying yes to God and to each other and to their child. And they start saying yes when they go home. And they realize how much they just keep saying no. Why don't I say yes? And so, Camp Paradise is all about helping people pursue the best connections spiritually and relationally. And there's a lot of yes saying that goes on.
Wow, I can only imagine what it is like for those boys who go home to a different dad, maybe than they went to camp with, and what that relationship might look like once they get home.
And the daughters. So we run father-son camps for ages 8 to 10 and then 10 to 12. And then we run father-daughter camps from 8 to 10 and 10 to 12. We have a women's retreat now. It's funny. We did a little survey, brought the women in and said, hey, what do you think about a mom's camp? We have heard people want to do a mom's camp. They came and they said, we would like to keep camp special for dads. We would like a women's retreat where no one can reach us for just a few days.
We're moms all the time.
I'm telling you, that thing filled up 2 years in a row within days. And all we had put on the website were the dates, the amount, and that there's no cell coverage. That was it. That was full.
They're in.
Wow. That's great. That's great. Well, Dan, we want to thank you for being with us, inspiring us a little bit about the impact of camp on the lives of both our dads and our kids, and to help us to maximize those spiritual moments on our road trips. So this is really coming close to an end of our season, Lindsay.
It is.
So next week will be our last episode of the season. So if you're new to listening to us, we kind of run our podcast during the school year. So as we're approaching the end of this school year and get ready to go into summer, we felt like this episode would be timely in that regard.
We'll make sure to list on our website all of the links to reach Camp Paradise. If you're interested in going to dad's camp this summer with your son or daughter, and there's still room, right, Dan?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. We got room for father, daughter, father, son. No problem. We do have a pretty extensive wait list for the women's retreat because I'm sure somebody's listening going, oh, I can't wait. But yeah, we've got lots of room.
Okay, great. So we'll link all of those things on our website, centerff.com, for any listeners wanting more information.
Yeah. So again, Dan, thanks for being with us. And we have this tradition around here of allowing our guests to share our weekly reminder. So I'll leave that to you.
Excellent. Well, when building faith, we are better together.